Hello, 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 everybody. It is time for some more monkey business. It's Chris in the studio from WFC3, hanging out with everybody yet again for the next half hour of entertainment and probably some little bit of insanity. In the studio with me today, the local icon, Billy DeTore.
Oh, me?
Yeah,
Hi.
you again. Tanya. Say hi, Tanya.
Hello.
And I got Brian, and our fearless leader is with us today, the president of the whole operation, the man who makes it all come together, Dan Ignatius Carmen.
Hello.
See, I told you I was going to say something. And on the phone with us, as before, we got the lovely Sybil Corbin.
Hi.
And the ever-present Deanna Schulmrick. Say hi, Dee.
Hello.
See, that's awesome. So we're all here. Cheer, cheer. The gang's all here for another half hour of insanity. And like I said, I named the podcast, haven't I? I did that. I called it the Monkey Business because I couldn't think of anything better.
Because we like the monkeys?
Because we like
that's
the
just
monkeys.
me.
Hey, we're the monkeys.
See, look at that. You
That's
guys
just
didn't even miss a beat. That's awesome. No, monkeys, because the overall company is Mighty Monkey Productions, and we present to you the Flower City Comic-Con.
Actually, I think it's the Mighty Monkey Corporation, but that's okay.
We're working on that part. Have we got an official on that one yet?
Not yet.
It's just not yet?
It's in progress.
It's happening at the speed of Congress?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
A lot of red tape.
So here we are, yet again, trying to find a way to entertain you. And we've talked about a little bit about the convention. We've talked a little bit about our history and our little goals going forward. Today we're going to start kind of talking about things that may or may not be important to you. And if they're not important, well, tough, you're going to listen anyway because we're fun. And today's topic right now is going to be about tabletop gaming. We're going to invoke a little Will Wheaton-esque humor here at this point. What is tabletop gaming? That is more than just Monopoly. It's more than just
Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit. It's more than just the game of life. It's living a different personality entirely. You got your traditional games like Dungeons and Dragons and its offshoots of multiple editions, Pathfinder, things like that. You have horror with vampire. You have insanity.
Deadlands.
Deadlands. You got the insanity of paranoia and Cthulhu and all sorts of good stuff. And how that's changed the culture and how it's moved forward into other platforms, such as World of Warcraft on your computer and Skyrim on your PC and your gaming console, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to partake in that, and there's a lot of ways to look at it from different directions of how it's affected our culture and how we relate to it as people. Dan, and you've been playing, I think the longest you were playing back when you were like in high school or earlier than that.
Earlier than that, 8th grade.
You're 8th grade, and that's kind of like the typical thing. It's funny because we're all pretty much, we can be considered, like if you've seen Stranger Things on Netflix.
I have.
Okay. We're all kind of contemporaries of those kids because they were 12 and 13 when that show's set in the early 80s. And that's the time when we were all 12 and 13. So, if we can think it forward, Will and his gang and Dustin, they're all our age. So it's kind of weird to see how they were portraying kind of us. I think it's kind of funny how it's related to so many people. But anyway, to go on to moving forward, what are some of the general the things that we like to do the most when it comes? Because I know we're all gamers in our own ways.
Actually, I'm not.
You're not, Billy?
No, I've not. No. It's something I've always thought looked really fun, but I never, I guess, hung out with other people that did it, so I never got into the
So this is a new thing
the
even
games.
for you. That's awesome.
I've seen, like you said, Stranger Things on Freaks and Geeks. Some of the kids used to play it, and I know of its existence, and I always go, this looks like fun, but I don't know anybody else that plays, and I don't really understand it, so...
That kind of happened to me, too, because I remember my 12th or 13th birthday, one of my dad's cousins gave me the original basic rules, the famous red box, as a Christmas present.
With the high-impact dice.
With the high-impact dice, which I didn't realize what high-impact meant until they were thrown at me. But I never really found a group. I never found people who were interested in it. It didn't seem cool enough, and it wasn't mainstream enough. I didn't actually start playing anything until I was in college, and then I met the guys who had introduced me to it and teach me it. And so that was like I was from 12 to 18, so there's 6 years that that I was not exposed to it in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I didn't start until I was 20.
That's true.
So I started in 92, and I didn't even know what this thing was.
You'd never heard of it before?
I've never, ever heard of it before.
And now And then there's your basement.
There's our basement.
Yeah,
It's
which
a
people have
shrine.
seen. Yeah, which people have seen in a few of our FC3 videos. So you can go to our YouTube channel and see what Tanya's basement looks like.
Now, can I ask, when did Dungeons and Dragons start? Which to me is the original one.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from high school in 1983, so I was like 17 in 1983. And I think
It'd been around.
It'd been around for a little while before that. It started
76 or 77.
I think
it started in the early 70s because I think they just had like their 40th or 45th anniversary or something like that.
And it actually started as a game called Chainmail. Now, the two original creators, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson.
God bless them.
God bless them both. We miss them both. But they were part of a wargaming group. So think like Warhammer and I'm getting dates here. Look at this. The
1974.
1974, 1977 for some of the original rules to be published in box form. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that is 40 years. So it's been part of the national consciousness for that long.
So it's been around longer than Trivial Pursuit, which you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Not as long as Monopoly.
Not as Monopoly. Here's a sidebar for you. I was doing some research for this particular, because I do show prep now because I'm a professional. But I saw somebody had
keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, I'm going to keep telling myself that. One of these days I'll even believe it. But somebody has a copy of Monopoly, an actual circular board. Circular board.
Oh wow!
And it was from it was crafted in 1915 or 1916, and it was for a particular almost like they had collector's editions back then, or a version thereof. And I thought that was kind of cool. It was very antiquated. But anyway, okay, tangent coming back. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Bring him in.
Bring him in. But yeah, it started out as Chainmail, and that was the name of the game. And it was they had done this wargaming, and they had basically chess on steroids. So it's like Warhammer 40K these days, where you have your figures lined up, and each figure
have to be painted.
Have to be painted, and they would have these large scale army battles that would be reenacted on tabletop, and then Gary Gygax had the great idea, well, what if this particular character in the back row, what if he had special statistics? And it's kind of started snowballing from there, and then that special character started getting broken away from the big war game, and going on his own adventures. And then that character started bringing friends along
to kill monsters,
to kill
take
monsters,
treasure.
exactly, murder hobos.
Yes.
Right? Is that what they call them? And so wander along, and you see how the evolution kind of started from there, and then has never looked back. So, where was I going with that? That's a good question. Brian, help me out here, would you?
Well, Billy was asking kind of what it is. He wanted to kind of be
Okay.
interested in that.
And the key with it is not necessarily knowing what you're doing yourself, Billy.
I
but if
still
you find
don't know what
someone
I'm
who knows how to run the game, I don't know if they still call them DMs nowadays.
Dungeon Master, Game Master.
Yeah, you know someone who does it. Anyone can jump in and play. I mean, they can pre-make characters for you. You don't have to worry about all of that. And so, I mean, if you're ever interested, there's plenty of people here that play that we could get you involved.
Oh, we would love. Yeah, that would be a
point,
great time.
And I've actually been down at the Village Gate Mall, or whatever they call it nowadays, and seen like people just sitting outside of a game store or something playing. They have tournaments and stuff.
Yeah.
And
there was a store called Paradise Games at Village Gate. I think it's closed at this point, but we still have a lot of like Bulldoze Armory over on Monroe.
Just Games
out in where's that?
Penfield,
and then Millennium, the Big Daddy, out in Henrietta. Those, so there's plenty of opportunity, and then there's lots. The internet will bring it to your door for free.
And is HeroClix a thing that you guys play? Or
HeroClix is a thing, but it's not something that I play. I mean,
I
play with the figures.
Yeah, we'll use the figures to kind of depict the stories that we're playing out sometimes. Okay. But I personally have not used HeroClix, the statistics and the actual game rules that came with those figures.
But didn't you order a HeroClix figure the other day?
I did, so that I can use it for.
We can thank Sean for that.
Yes, for my every other Sunday game. Right now we're playing. It's an interesting. We'll talk about it a little bit. It's a Pathfinder rules called Iron Gods. So you have your basic Pathfinder world of Galarian. So there's all the swords and sorcery and all of the the nations and armies and monsters and creatures that you'd be familiar with a Tolkien-esque kind of setting. And right in the middle of it, they slap down an ancient starship from a foreign alien culture, and all of the technology that would come with it. So you have your swords and sorcery all laid across the countryside, but in this one particular country you have laser guns and robots and spaceships and stuff, and yeah, they're herdy. So it's kind of funny to see how these two things have been kind of slapped together and how they fit and how things work. And so, again, the bottom line of this is, where can your imagination take you? And that's, I mean, rules are rules, and you can work with the rules, and you can, that helps you figure out solutions to situations and things like that. But the long and the short of it is, where can your imagination take you? How can you be that person, and what is that person going to do? And I think that's the bottom line. I think that's part of the wonder of it, is you can do pretty much whatever you want. That's kind of the cool thing about it. You can go wherever you want, whatever you want, do whatever, kind of your imagination takes you. And that's one of the beauties of the game, and why I think it's probably one of the reasons why it's lasted so long.
Well, and one of the interesting things I find is that it started in 1974, it was even mentioned, but as technology went along, and we got all these video games nowadays, how many video games are role-playing video games?
Yeah.
They've just taken something that from the youth of us and these developers of the video games, and they bring that into the game where you can actually RPG, and instead of having to use your imagination, which I think is a great part of playing these tabletop games, you can actually see what's going on with your character on the screen, which is neat. So
nice
to watch it kind of develop and create its own little genre outside of the tabletop has been interesting over time too.
Nice. You answered my question. Like I said, I've seen people playing HeroClix. That's why at the comic book store I go to, they have tournaments, and so to me it's almost a way in, because they use a lot of the superheroes that I know as a comic book reader. So I don't have to learn the Dungeons and Dragons character. Like, I don't even know. Like,
they do have a superheroes game too.
Oh, there's for every. That's the cool thing about it. Every genre there is, for horror, for mystery, for steampunk, which is becoming a big part of our culture in recent years. You can go back in time, you can go forward in time, and you can go anywhere you want with it. And there's going to be a rule set for it. For Firefly fans, there's a whole game around the Firefly universe. There's the Doctor Who games, Star Trek, Star Wars. You think it up, and somebody's put together a rule set for it, so you can take part in that universe, in that theme, and have some fun with it.
Starfleet Battles? What is this?
Starfleet Battles is like HeroClix, actually, because it gives you the stats of the various spaceships that are so popular through Star Trek's history and lore, and then you can do fleet battles or one-on-one battles, and it's chess on acid, really. Sybil, are you a gamer?
Sybil?
She's thinking about it.
Am actually not really a gamer.
No.
I enjoy watching other people game, and I'm fascinated learning about gaming, but I've never really sat down and done it myself, going past card games. So I like crazy, intricate, weird card games that they have these days, and besides that, I'm really not much of a gamer.
Now, as gaming is a spectator sport, which I'm sure it will happen once in a while. What are some of the favorite things you like to watch? Do you like to see how people tear their hair out, or for the solutions they come up with, the evil game masters?
I like watching the interaction between the characters on trying to figure out how, in their own minds, how they're trying to figure out who's on their side, who's going to go against them, who's going to work together, and who's not going to work together, and who is working together, but they're really not working together because they're actually working with someone else.
That is so our Sunday campaign.
Oh, God, yeah. Tiny's laughing right now.
And being on the outside looking in on that, it's fascinating to just watch it. Like it's almost like you're watching a television. Like they don't realize that you're there watching them because they're so into their game, and that's the part that I like, just how into the game that the people get.
So it's almost like live-action reality TV for you.
Yes, but it's better.
See, I think we need to do that at the convention and see if we can sell tickets to watch somebody play a game.
I don't know. I might be throwing dice.
At people. Yes, you've done that.
I have done that.
I've received a couple of them over the years.
Deanna's laughing because she's been on the receiving end of dice at the other end of the
I'm
table.
at the opposite end of the table, so I have to duck.
Yeah.
Yes. As long as you stand still, you're good. As soon as you start dodging and weaving, you'll probably get hit.
Well, if you get the big fuzzy dice, you could do something.
Yeah, Tiny does not reach for the big fuzzy dice. She reaches for the small, sharp, pointy ones. All right, so we have Sybil who likes to watch and take it in. We have Deanna who plays very casually. She kind of goes. I think Dee, you sit at the table more for the social aspect, just to kind of hang out with the folks who are at the table. Am I wrong in that one?
Yes and no. It depends. Right now, I'm actually taking a break from gaming, working on some other things, but it depends on the campaign. Campaigns, if they're too big, I usually end up going for the social aspect. But if they're smaller and I'm able to get involved, that's I do that. So it depends on the mood for me, really. But I'm a gamer. Kind of like Tanya, started in college shortly after I got out of college. Chris actually created my first character for me.
I did, didn't I?
I'm sorry.
I actually still have that character sheet somewhere.
I remember you showed it to me once.
In a box.
Yeah, I remember you showing that to me.
It's probably going to be in a plastic sleeve like those comic books.
There you go.
Be. I should get it graded and see how much it's actually worth.
Yeah, I can tell you how much it's worth right now. I would actually pay you to take it off your hands. So that's you would.
I look at it as another outlet for creativity. You can get out of reality, turn yourself into somebody, a superhero, a warrior, a wizard, and just kind of check out for a couple hours and, expand your mind and, exercise your mind.
Yep.
That's kind of how I've always approached gaming for me, as just an outlet to be creative.
I tell you, definitely that. And it's also, for me, a great stress reliever. So when I've had like a rough day at work or whatever, I look forward to the Tuesdays or the Saturdays or the Sundays, and I'm kind of disappointed when we don't get to play. And like we're not playing next week or whatever.
We're getting our kids into it now too, so it's kind of funny. We grew up with this stuff, and now we're passing it down a generation. Like both of my teenagers and Tanya, one of your boys,
I only
your
have
teenager.
one teenager.
I was going to say you have multiple teenagers, but one acts like it. He hasn't
the
quite
8-year-old
reached there.
sometimes acts like a teenager.
Don't start.
But we're getting our kids into it. Brian, have you gotten your boys into it at all?
Only one has shown a lot of interest.
That's the youngest one, right?
No, the oldest actually.
The oldest?
We've started a Pathfinder campaign with my cousin, who we used to play with when I was younger. How do you guys feel? Because this same cousin had some issues at one point in his life, and it's something that I know used to be kind of a concern of parents of kids playing is keeping that reality and fantasy separate from each other.
They are separate?
Well, no,
oh, man.
I know. I had a relative who played, and he kind of got caught in that fantasy world, and literally took a sledgehammer to the walls in his house.
Oh, jeez. Well, there's going to be extreme cases all across the board.
Absolutely. And those are concerns that I think are most of the time unwarranted. But I just want to bring it up and see what you guys had to say about those things.
Well, here's what I do at my house with my kids. We have an every other Saturday game. And if we don't have a game that's happening at that moment, I tell them put the books away. As soon as the game is done, you put the dice away, you put the books away, you put your character sheet away. And then a couple of hours before a game day occurs, you can bring everything out and start getting yourself ready for the game. But when you're not playing, you put it away. For us now, we can casually pick up a book whenever we want to because, we're adults. Yeah, funny. Sort of
physically
adults.
Anyway.
Physically adults. So we have that, over the years we've gained that experience to say, okay, there's a time for it and there isn't a time for it. But with the kids, especially, like I know my son, if he latches onto something, that's it. He wants to go all gonzo into that.
And we saw it. Then he was devastated when the DM disintegrated his character, or what we thought he disintegrated his character.
He was so bummed. Yeah, character death is a real thing,
it is.
people.
Really?
But you know what? It took him a little while to really get it. But then once he realized that he was in a different spot and we thought he was disintegrated, he did a really nice job trying to problem solve and get back to the party.
Right. And the last session, he's really starting to figure out how to solve solutions without having to roll dice, without having to swing the sword. And that's something else, teaching kids. And I like the fact that younger generations are continually being exposed to it. TSR, which then was bought out by Wizards of the Coast, the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, Hasbro was in there at one point or another. These rules are always
evolving.
Thank you. And it's great and they're making it updated so future generations can be accessible to it. And we'll talk about differences and additions later. But the great thing about it is that it teaches children problem solving and communication and interaction.
And that is sorely lacking with a lot of kids today.
Oh, it's terrible.
Sorely lacking.
Yeah.
They get behind their tablets and their iPads and their computers, and you don't see or hear from them for hours.
You must be in my house every so often.
It's good to a point because it teaches them technology, but I think it's taking away that human interaction. And I see that where I work sometimes, that students have a very difficult time, students and people in general have difficult time communicating with one another because they don't know how to do it. And so it's great how these games, which seem to be so frivolous to some and easy to dismiss for others, but if you look at them, they can be teaching tools so that it's not just your imagination, but how you look at the rest of the world can be affected by that. And that's part of what we're doing as the Mighty Monkey is we want to educate people that hey, we're not just nerds, we're not geeks. This stuff isn't weird. Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
Debatable.
Not just
you know
nerds.
what I mean.
World class geek.
We're more than nerds.
Well, what's nice is go ahead, Dee.
We're here to it's not just a niche thing. It's not a strange thing. There are positive things to it, and this is what these are the positives. We want to show this to people.
Well, definitely. My son's a senior out in Henrietta, and his school district actually has a role-playing club, and he's been a member of it for the last 2 years, which I was at open house the other night, and the staff that supervises it was amazed about how many kids that they have this year in the club, that it's grown a lot. So we were really excited that Tyler's a part of it and that he wants to be a part of it and that he's working on problem-solving skills and things like that with his classmates and his peers. And for him, that's a really huge thing because it does help students and kids open up and socialize, like you said.
Can I ask, how long, is there like a general length of game? Because that's one thing I've always been confused on. Sometimes it seems like weeks. Can you play in a day, in a couple hours?
Well,
Does it take?
You could play an adventure in a day if it was just a good dungeon crawl.
Exactly. There are multiple, and that's another great thing, and that's an awesome point to bring up, Billy. It depends on the game master, it depends on the crew, and it depends on the game. There are some games that are set for, you can do this in 2 or 3 hours. And then there are some parts of the game, some modules, campaigns are some of the vernacular being used there that can go on over the course of 2-3 years.
I think our Tuesday night campaign lasted like 5 years.
5 years.
Okay, this is going to sound
characters.
stupid then. When you're done for the night or after a few hours, you're ready to go home, do you make notes?
Oh, yeah.
Do you
throughout the whole night.
Leave a board up somewhere? Is there just like some place where the board always is exactly as it's supposed to be?
Everybody's going to do it differently. What's very popular are these mats that have battle mats that have the graphs on them, the squares or hexagons or whatever, and you can use dry erase markers or wet erase markers on them, so you can have your mat, and then they roll up and you can stash them away. Or some modules will come with paper maps so you can lay out on the table. Tanya is about to show you a picture of her basement. They have 3 6-foot folding tables side by side with this big battle mat underneath it, and then a layer of plexiglass over it, so they can go ahead and draw whatever they want on the plexiglass and not stain the mat. And since it's in the basement, it's a part of their house they can kind of set aside. It's the gaming area.
It never gets picked up.
Yeah, it never gets picked up. So in essence, they have a feature at their house where there's always a place, and you leave it off and pick up another game, or you can pick up the same game a couple weeks later. Not everybody has that luxury, but there are always ways to do it. There's always, and I'll tell you what, early on, when I first started playing in college, we didn't really map a lot. It was all the DM would, or the game master would tell you, this is what the room looks like. You jot some notes down. We all had our character. Oop, there's me knocking the microphone around. We had our notebooks, we had our dice, we had our character sheets, and then you just writing things down, keeping track of stuff. You could do things in 2 hours. You can do, like I said, it took us 5 years to go through a 3-book saga. And
because I'm trying to imagine me with, I'm not OCD like crazy OCD, but I need to have certain things done before I can start something else. Like I'm watching I was watching a TV show called BoJack Horseman on Netflix.
You've talked about that one before.
And I couldn't start my next show on Netflix till I was done with that one. Like my brain wouldn't let me go, okay, I really want to watch the second season of The Flash, but I couldn't start it until I was done with...
I have 4 different campaigns going right now
Yeah.
that I'm a part of.
I've backed out of a few. I think I'm down to 2 right now
and
because
so
I was
trying
having
to
some
remember
fatigue.
what do I have and what am I doing and whatever. So I have to go back and look at the character sheet every so often, even while we're gaming. I say, oh yeah, I've got second level spells. I'm going to thank Mark for that, for reminding me.
There's a type of game
up,
you're going to want to avoid. As you start, if you take your first step into this much larger world, Billy, there's a type of game you will just want to avoid. It's called the sandbox game. A sandbox is basically it's a loose reference. Any game master out there will know. They'll basically what they're going to do is they're going to set the world out in front of you, say here's the town you're in or here's the city you're in. What do? They're not going to give you anything. It's up to you to take your character that you've spent all this time laboring over and creating and carrying every detail. It's up to you then to go, well, I leave my house. Okay, where do you go? Yeah, well, now I'm going to go over here. Okay, what do you do when you get there?
I don't know.
Exactly. They will just open the world up and let you go explore it. Now,
I don't like doing that in real life.
see, but this
I
here's
like
the thing.
having a purpose.
Wait.
I don't want. I knew when I woke up this morning I was coming here.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
But that's great because think of it this way. You have the ability to go out your front door and explore an entire world from the safety of your living room. You have this way, and this is something we were kind of touching on with how, like the generation coming up behind us, they're so insulated. This is a way to kind of teach, to keep that imagination and that mind open to, like for instance, Billy, who does not like he's not comfortable with that. Okay, well, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that. With T-shirt and shorts, a pencil, a pen, dice, and paper from your living room couch. You don't actually have to physically leave your house. You have an opportunity to kind of use your imagination, go out into a world and explore it. And if it's not cool, you're like, oh well. And then you can crumple up your paper, throw it over your shoulder, and move on.
No.
No, don't crumple up your
No.
Tanya and I are very guilty of putting way too much time and effort into our characters. So when character death happens, like I said earlier, it's a real thing. You feel that. I mourn that person's passing. It's like
3 in one campaign.
Yeah, well, yeah.
3
I was right there.
in one campaign.
I had 3 in the same campaign as you did. Yeah, that was a lethal one.
No, and the other thing is, like, the DM will prep all this stuff to go on a specific adventure that the characters pick and things like that. And then all of a sudden, like, when you get in there, the DM's like, yes, we're ready for it. And then we totally do a 90-degree turn, and they're like looking through the book now because they're not prepped for what we decided to do.
A couple of weeks ago, our current DM is our friend Doug. And he had all this stuff planned. And we went sideways and completely missed all of it. And I remember him looking across the table at a friend of ours, Evan, and just going, it was a curse word, but he threw it out there. It was like, oh man.
So last week he prepped by getting all the monsters set up, going, I know you guys are going to go any which direction. If I think you're going to go left, you guys are going to go straight. And if I'm going, he was prepped for anything at that point. But that's the thing. A really good DM is able to
adjust on the fly.
Adjust on the fly. And Randy is definitely able to adjust on the fly. And last night, one of our friends, Sean, was out of town, so we didn't play our normal campaign. We started Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with
how'd that go?
Mark.
Were those interesting?
Tyler actually came downstairs, but he's a little scared of Mark. I can see why, because Mark's kind of scary DM. He's the one
lethal.
He is lethal, but he was really good. But it was interesting. Not too bad. So
we have Billy, who has never played.
We need to get him over and start gaming.
We're just going to call him a pre-novice. He hasn't quite gotten the character yet. You got Tanya and I, who are veterans and still active. You got Brian, who's a veteran and active. You got Dan over here, who's retired.
Awfully quiet.
He's retired. He used to play all the time, but he hasn't in a very long time.
Very, very long time.
But think about it from your perspective. You remember all the adventures you went on when you were playing actively, and do you look back at that, and does it sit? I mean, you and I have always, and there's a bunch of us who are here. We all write short stories and whatnot for the fun of it. Is that something that that imagination, does that color how you look at certain things? Does it push you to do certain kind of approaches?
It's been so long. I mean, it definitely affected it way back then. But I mean, I don't know about now.
Okay.
But I mean, it probably did and affected who I am today in some way because everything you do,
builds up on
your character.
Right.
I don't consciously think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
He's going to do Paw Patrol adventures.
for my kids, yes.
For the kids. Here's a random fact, by the way. This is on the top of my Snapple bottle. If two pieces of the same type of metal touch in outer space, they will bond together permanently. There you go, non sequitur time. And thank you very much, Billy. And so from here, what we're going to do right now is we're going to encourage you, the listener, to think about it. To think about it. Have you ever played? Do you want to play? And do you know of a game shop in your area? So try it. Try it. And
you
tell us,
might like it.
You might like it. You might try something new. And if you need it, if you have any questions, as always,
please send them to us.
Please send them to us. We'll be happy to talk about it. We're going to be talking about this again. This is not the only time we're ever going to talk about tabletop gaming. We're going to wrap this particular podcast up for the day, and we are very, very grateful that you hung in there with us for the half hour of your life that you did. And so thank you. Thank you to all. And there's that music again.
Chris loves it.
I'm telling you.
It's fantastic.
It is. Thank you, Sybil. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Billy. This has been Monkey Business, a Mighty Monkey production. Mighty Monkey Productions of Rochester, New York, creators and presenters of the Flower City Comic-Con, presenting their second show, May 20th and 21st, 2017, at the Floriano Rochester Riverside Convention Center. Follow us on Facebook, www.facebook.com. FC3ROC.